Good afternoon, and welcome to the June 12th meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. The first item on our agenda, we have reports, first from our manager.
I'm not really going to give a report. What I'd like to do is call attention to a very important upcoming event in our village, and that is the Comprehensive Plan Community Kickoff. And many of you may have already seen some advertisement about this event on our Facebook page or in the flyers that we send out or otherwise. But this is a really big deal. I think everybody here is aware that we're about to start down this about year to year and a half long journey of updating our comprehensive plan for the village of Pinehurst. And this is the first big event, and it's going to happen on the 27th of June at the Fair Barn from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so what is a kickoff? It's kind of like it is. It's a kickoff event. This is an opportunity to engage the public about what this process is and how it's going to work. It's an opportunity for us to start to build excitement about this important thing that we're going to be undertaking over the next little bit more than a year. And it's also an opportunity to start to engage in the dialogue about what this long-term vision for our community. And so, it's really important that we get folks to show up to this event. If you've seen some of the promotional material out there already, you're probably aware that we've branded this endeavor "Envision the Village," and so that's what you're going to be looking out, and that's the thing you're going to be seeing out there in the community that's tied to this fairly long effort that we're about to embark on. I'd also like to call attention to the fact that at this kickoff event on the 27th of June from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Fair Barn, we're going to have childcare available. So if for families that otherwise would be tied down and wouldn't think they would be able to make an event like this, I hope that allows them to come in and participate in this first event. Beyond that, the next big event associated with our comprehensive plan update is going to be the Planapalooza, which is about a 5 or 6 day long focused event for our community, and that's going to be taking place near the end of September, from the 19th to the 24th of September. So, if you've heard about it, or if you haven't heard about it, I hope this is good news for you all, and I'd just like to enlist everybody's help out there in spreading the word about this important event. Tell all your friends, make sure that they're armed with the information that they need to come and help us undertake this.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Kevin?
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Today.
Mr. Bolledry?
I'd like to give a real shout out to Mark Wagner and his crew. We had 2 great weekends of Shakespeare in the Pines. Great turnout. If you recall, last year there were 3 performances over a weekend. This year there were 2 weekends and 3 performances each. I thought the crowds were great. Mark and your team, thanks very much for the support and for the village that providing such a great cultural event for the village of Pinehurst. Thank you very much.
It was awesome. Anybody go out there? No?
It was incredible.
Much better than you think it would be, Shakespeare.
Really, and the beauty is that you can buy a table and kind of give some money back to the event, or you can just go
For free.
for free. So it's pretty well worth it. They did a Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was really interesting. Cool. It was cool. Yes, I agree. Judy?
Kevin and I are trying to hook up with a gal named Grace Lawrence from the Community Economic Development Planner through the Department of Commerce, and for North Carolina Main Street and rural planning. And we're trying to also hook up with Katrin Franklin. And we're having trouble with schedules, but we're going to make it happen here pretty soon, maybe this Friday. But that'll be interesting to see what she has to say and what that can mean for our community.
Great.
And I think there is also a visioning session before the September program in August. So we've got a lot of things.
You're right, it is, yep.
A lot of things going on that. And it really depends upon community active participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Mr. Cashin.
Actually, what I have today is something that's been a long, ongoing process by Moore County in trying to get a new courthouse. And tomorrow, we will begin interviewing those that have been left to, and so we'll have 4. We'll be doing them starting tomorrow and ever how long it takes till we get through to the end of them.
Very big project, selecting an architect for the new courthouse. Thank you for representing us on that, John. Okay, our next item, I assume, is going to be done by our very distinguished police chief, Earl Phipps.
Mayor, members of council, tonight we bring forth a couple of officers for your attention for some above standard performance that was really outside the normal realm of what they do every day. You know, we're expected to answer pretty serious calls for service. We're expected to run towards the violence when folks are running away. But sometimes some folks do a little above and beyond, and that's what this is about. This is a life-saving award for Master Patrol Officer Keith Gorham and Officer Ryan Bullock. Ryan Bullock is no longer with us. He's a Fayetteville police officer now. He was going to be here tonight in attendance. He's taking a break and an interim there, so obviously he can't be here. But Keith, if you'd come up. This is a life-saving award presented to Master Patrol Officer Keith Gorham for his heroic efforts in saving a life. On November 6, 2017, at approximately 7 p.m., Officer Bullock and Master Patrol Officer Gorham responded to a call of an unconscious person. Upon arrival, they found a 46-year-old male on the ground, not breathing, with no pulse. They assessed the situation and found signs of drug use and began life-saving measures. While Master Patrol Officer Gorham began immediate CPR, Officer Bullock administered 2 dosage units of Narcan. EMS arrived and asked that the CPR be paused briefly to check for signs of life, and found that the person was flatlined and indeed had no signs of life. The officers, against better judgment, continued that CPR even after told that there were no signs of life. And thankfully, after several minutes, the person began to move. Within 10 minutes, he was breathing on his own and he was conscious. So police officers, like I say, usually deal with criminal matters, not medical emergencies. But both of these gentlemen stepped up by beginning and continuing life-saving measures even after folks had given up on them. And as a result of this distinctive accomplishment reflects favorably upon Master Patrol Officer Gorham and the village of Pinehurst. Brian, come on.
Thank you, Chief. You know, sometimes we think we're immune from drug problems in our little bubble that we live in, but we're not. And certainly the opioid crisis is upon us. I think you all have Narcan in your vehicles, do you not? Yep. Yep. It's sad to say that you have to have it, but it's a good thing that it's there. Okay, next we have our consent agenda, and all of these items can be approved under one motion.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by John Baldry and a second by John Cashin. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you very much, Lauren. That's unanimous. Okay, number 5, is that Mark? Okay.
Good evening. Joining me tonight are Peter and Andrew Stillwell with Tar Heel Communications. As you're aware, we have a request for a sponsorship on behalf of Peter and Andrew. This is for the U.S. Kids Parade of Nations. That's been held in the village for 9 years, I believe you said. And this is to officially request sponsorship from the village for the parade. I believe Peter would like to make the Village of Pinehurst the presenting sponsor, I believe he said, is their intent. What they would like to do is they're requesting a waiver of our fees that are in the, excuse me, the fees and charges schedule associated with a temporary use permit. This would be for barricade closures, fees to use Tufts Park for the event after the parade. This would also cover our staff fees for trash collection after the event. They're also requesting use of the mobile stage. So I will turn it over to Andrew, who's going to give you, excuse me, a little more information.
Well, Mark.
Andrew, I'm not sure if your mic works. You might want, oh, it does.
Okay.
Then speak right into it there.
So Mark covered pretty much everything that we're looking for. Like he mentioned, we are looking just for waiving of the fees for Tufts Park, the barricade roadblock fees, and event trash pickup fees. And we're also requesting use of the stage. And we're prepared to make the village the presenting sponsor of this parade.
That's wonderful. This has been such a community event for so many years. If you have never been to the U.S. Kids Parade of Nations, it's usually the hottest day of the year, July 31st. It's like at 6 p.m. at night, and everybody's dripping, but these kids are from everywhere. And when you see them marching through the village, it truly is, it's like the United Nations. They're from everywhere. And it is, it's really an exciting event.
Well, this year, we appreciate your consideration. We have 2,400 players from 50 different countries that will participate this year. So it is a tsunami of families that come through the village that evening for the parade, and they're here for about 2 weeks. The economic impact for the community, including Pinehurst, is about $9.5 million per year, which makes the event collectively larger than the U.S. Open as far as total economic impact over the last 12 years. And we're getting ready to extend the contract through 2025, which will make it the longest running event in the community in the history of Pinehurst. So,
Right. Is there a staff recommendation along with this, Mark? Does it fall under one of our categories, or?
It's kind of a community event, I think,
Yes.
but it does not have a fundraising component.
No.
So it's kind of in the gray area, I think.
Okay.
But we wanted to bring it to you just because of the size and scope.
Right.
The fact that it involves the mobile stage that we don't normally rent out to folks,
Right.
unless there is a sponsorship component. Certainly, there's a financial impact in terms of the fees that would be waived, the revenue that we would not receive from the event. It will involve some staff labor costs that we would essentially be covering for the event. But certainly, it's something that has been going on over the past few years, so it would not be any additional impact to staff other than that we've been providing.
It is totally up to us to decide. Okay, are there any questions from council members?
2,400 is the children that are coming this year?
2,400 is the children. Each is attached to about 4.3
Yes.
parents and siblings.
Yes.
So
Coaches, and I've seen,
trainers
Yes.
and psychologists all travel with these kids.
I personally transported about 11 members of one girl's family when it was at Pine Needles a few years ago, a teenage girl. So, yeah, the entourages.
What's the number then, the real number of people, what do you think?
Probably 7,500 to 10,000 people
I
annually.
think people ought to hear that,
right, it's a lot of people eating and sleeping here. Sure is. And we had a resident of Pinehurst who won the 14-year-old, or was it the 12-year-old? He was very tall.
He was 12.
12, he was 12. He was very tall. We gave him an award. He sent me a very nice postcard. And he is now living here in Pinehurst. I'm sure he'll be here again.
He's already been accepted by Duke University
Oh, really?
at 12 years old.
He's 12?
He's already signed with Duke to
University?
represent the school.
He must be smart, too. Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments from council? Do we need a motion on this, Jeff?
No.
Okay, then just, I hear that we have consensus that we should sponsor this event, and we should donate our assets as we can to continue this for this year and every other year to come. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for all the work you do.
Thank you.
You. Thank you for asking me to be the grand marshal of the parade. Right in that old fire engine, and what's his name? The assistant fire chief, Floyd. We never know if it's really going to go or not. You know, it's like it's got this plumes of black smoke coming out of it, but it's always fun. It's always fun to ride in it because you never know if you're going to get where you're going. But it's going to be a wonderful event, July 31st. I encourage you all to come out because it is wonderful. Thank you very much, Peter and Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, number 6, I think Audrey and Mark are going to discuss this one.
I'm still here, so Audrey, if you want to
Still
come
here.
on up. This is a request from Given Tufts regarding use of Tufts Park fitfully, for a fundraiser that they're going to have on Thursday, June 21st. This is a farm-to-table meal called Farmers on the Green. So this is going to be a ticketed event that is a fundraiser. This is not a sponsorship request unless Audrey wants to make it that going forward, but for now, this is just simply a waiver of the fees to use the park. Audrey did indicate, and she was going to mention this, that, you know, they are willing to pay for our staff time that would be required to do trash cleanup after the event. So this is simply just a fee waiver request on behalf of Given
Okay.
Tufts. So I will turn it over to Audrey.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, we have paid the $100, excuse me,
I'm
been
contagious.
struggling with this, yeah.
Would you like some water?
No, I'm okay. It doesn't get any better right now. We have paid the $100 deposit, and we've done the application. I have a beverage license and everything. We will be selling hard cider from James Creek, local cider plant, and we'll be having Southern Pines Brewery, and all the food will be from our local farmers. Some of the farmers will be having tables inside our tents. There'll be a tent, et cetera. And as Mark said, I want to pay for people who do the work. I would like to pay for the trash pickup, et cetera, but I was hoping that you guys might waive the rental fee for the Village Green. And we are the official public library of Pinehurst. So if you would please do so, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Also, we are selling tickets if anybody wants to come. It's
It
going to
sounds
be really nice, I think.
really nice.
I'm very impressed with the menu. There's going to be Heritage Farms pork, local shrimp and grits. There's going to be a pan cotta out of Paradox Farms goat cheese and local greens, and so I think it's going to be fun. As I say, some of the farmers will be there giving information about what they have and how it's produced, et cetera.
So who is actually putting together the meal?
Mark Elliott, thank you. Mark Elliott, Elliott's Farm to
Guaranteed-
Table is
guaranteed
donating
to
the food, and we're just paying their service staff as
Wow,
well.
that's wonderful. So our question is whether or not to donate the park?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, and that's
Please.
something that we can do just all on our own?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does anyone have any objections to donating the park to this wonderful activity?
It'll be a couple hours, like 6:30 to 8:30, maybe 9:30, depending on how much blood we're
And
having.
it's a Thursday too, you know, which means
Right.
it's not a high
Yeah.
yield.
Not a high yield day?
Right.
Okay. Do we have consensus that we shall donate the park? Okay, we do. Thank you, Audrey.
Awesome, thank you so much. We
Sounds-
all appreciate it.
Sounds like a great event. Thank you, Mark. Okay, number 7.
This is, it's budget time. And if you all recall that a little over 4 weeks ago, I presented our comprehensive budget for FY19 to the council and to the public. And then we followed that up 2 weeks later with a a public hearing on the budget. And so what's before you now is an opportunity to consider approving that budget by ordinance. There's an ordinance that's been prepared for you to adopt to put that budget into action for this coming year.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. We have had, the council had an opportunity for 5 hours of budget workshop. Then we did have, actually, we start this process when we start our strategic planning in either December or January. So we have been working toward this budget for many, many months. It's one of the biggest things we do is spend our money, so we take it very seriously. We had a public hearing. No one actually spoke at the public hearing, but maybe that just means they're very well informed and very happy about what's going on. So, council, have any last questions on the budget? Or are we ready to vote?
Just a comment from me. One of the things I think I'd like to see that we could include in the budget, include in the strategic operating plan is the following. I've been, of course, following very carefully since December things that happen in the village, and Chief and your staff has done a great job keeping us as the safest community in North Carolina. And it's certainly my intent that we do everything we can to ensure that that safety record continues. And as you know, when the annual report comes out, we're looking at 2 things that I'm interested in. One is the crime, and the big things for me are in crime were the drug incidents and drug arrests. And if you'll all remember that a drug incident could involve several people, arrests involve more than one person in an incident. So I'm looking at drug use. I'm looking at weapons, which it's amazing what our police force can do if there's a concerted multi-agency stoppage in expired licenses, license plates. I mean, there's all sorts of amazing things that we find out about, and then and DWIs as well. The last Neighborhood Advisory Council meeting, there was a lot of concern about speeding and speed across the village. And so what I asked the chief to do, and the chief was very good through Jeff Sanborn in providing some what I would call data. So the data for me is 2 parts. One part is the year-over-year report of what goes on in the village and looking at the numbers as they change. And in those 3 categories I mentioned, the numbers have always been increasing. But most recently, in looking at, from the 19th of May through today, I wanted to track what the daily reports show for 3 categories. One is if we're going to issue a citation, or if we're going to give a verbal warning, or if we give a written warning. So there's 3 different things. Now there are other things that our police force does which are great. I mean, it's just amazing what they do. But those are the 3 things I was focusing on. And what roads are the roads where there is a high incidence roadways of pulling cars over and providing citations. And so I do have that information. But what I'd like to do also is to say that in the period of time that I just mentioned, it was about a month. There were 56 citations issued for speeding. There were 51 citations or verbal warnings. So there's a distinction between a verbal warning and a written warning. And there were 16 written warnings. So this is certainly it's not scientific, but it's through just tracking daily reports. So 2 things. One for me, again, is the crime, which I've seen in the annual report, and then an unscientific, but just gathering data myself to see what is happening. And what I'd like to think would be a prudent thing to do in our strategic operating plan, and which when we look at the projection for growth, is that we put in a placeholder in the out years where our police force is going to concomitantly grow in size, representing what our village population is going to grow. But this will not impact the budget we have today, but I think it's prudent for us to think about it, how we would do that. And then when we come back in December for our big retreat, we can do a deep dive into it. Now, I know also that there was a Birdie done, and the Birdie was done 2 years ago. And there'll be an effort to go back and look at the last E in Birdie, which is evaluate. So that can be done, but when looking at what the purpose of the Birdie 2 years ago was, it does not include looking at increasing the size of our force in conjunction with, say, the way our statistics are going, nor is it consistent with the way our projecting our village is moving. So I think two recommendations. One is that we include at least a placeholder for not this fiscal year, but the next 4 fiscal years, where the placeholder would be the addition of 1 sworn officer each year to increase for the force. When we get into the reviewing the Birdie, then we can do a better deep dive into it to see what really makes sense. And then we can, as a council, come to a better decision and conclusion when we meet in December. So I think again, this is not something for the budget for this year, but this is for long-range strategic operating planning for us. So I'd like to put that before the council, our colleagues on the council here for their thoughts.
I think we certainly need to have that evaluation of the Birdie that was 2 years ago. And also, we need to remember that we added 2 officers a year ago or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, dedicated to traffic control. And when we're stopping more people, you're seeing more weapons, you're seeing more whatever it is they have on their dashboards. And so some of that plays into it, and I think we have to sort all that out. And we can do that. We can certainly do that with looking at the data, and we shall do it. We certainly don't want to shortchange our citizens by way of law enforcement protection. So I agree that we should take a little bit deeper look into that.
If I could clarify a little bit, you all approved the addition of those 2 police officers 2 years ago. We didn't actually operationalize all of the results of that Birdie until probably 6 or 7 months later. So it wasn't really until the end of calendar year 2016 that we were kind of all set to go and start to look at what the impacts were.
And we have a lot of study to do based on the timing of these increased efforts. So we shall do that, and I'm sure our organization is capable of doing that. Any other comments?
So as a rookie, I'll say that the budget process for me was particularly painful. Witness all the emails that Jeff and John and Natalie and Brooke received. I think, I'm not ever had an experience of being in a balanced scorecard environment, and I understand the value of this book for the team and the village staff, but I think that hopefully one of the things that can come out next spring when we get around to the budget is, and maybe this can be a role that Lauren could help us with, is how to simplify this and make it more consumable by the average citizen. It has taken me until this week to have my brain connect the fact that a Powell bill means resurfacing money. And that's, but how, that's not intuitively obvious to the casual observer as a citizen out there. And so when people would ask me, well, how much money are we spending on resurfacing, and how much money are we spending on stormwater, and how much is the community center going to cost, I wanted to be able to pull a thread and find out the answer to that. But man, I challenge you to do that. And without, a nice crib sheet that John Fry gave me before he departed last week with page references and things like that. I mean, I want to be able to do a better job on my own next year, but I think we also are doing a disservice to our community by not giving them something that's much more user-friendly. We can have this version for the team here, but if we could have an easy-to-digest, at a glance, I won't say for dummies, but for Judy, that I'll be your lowest common denominator user.
I think a Cliff Notes version would be a better way of saying it. And for me, if I can put it on the 5x8 card, then I can understand it. And I can explain it at the level that we on the council should be able to explain it in areas that are important to us. And so, for me, the community center was something which I needed to work on hard so that we knew exactly what we're getting, when we're getting it, what our costs were going to be, what our net cost is, and what our revenue was going to be. And so I was able to distill that down. And so what Judy said, I think, is really important for our village to be able to. I don't want for citizens, not average citizens, but our citizens and residents to be able to understand in certain key areas. And maybe it's as well as when we look at the annual survey that goes out, how priorities rank there, and then, but we have time to think about how we would do that and make sense for our village between now and a year from now.
Okay, thank you, John. Any other comments or questions?
I just wanted to add that some of the complexities because of state requirements.
Right, yeah.
So it's, it's not all the balanced
Absolutely.
scorecard. We have state statute and rules we
Yeah.
have to follow, and that causes some of it, which we don't have a choice.
No, exactly. I mean, budget actual variance is one of the most interesting metrics I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of the combination between the balanced scorecard and state statutes. It was a doozy. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready?
It's okay. I'd like to move to approve ordinance 18-08, adopting the Village of Pinehurst fiscal year 2019 budget.
Second.
We have a motion by Kevin Drum and a second by John Cashin. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you very much. We have adopted our FY19 budget. It's unanimous, Lauren. Okay, next we have, I'll get that later. Next we have other business. Any other business from council members? Okay, if not, we have comments from attendees. Any attendees who would wish to speak? Yeah, come on up to the microphone, or you will not.
Question.
You will not. Just come up to the microphone, because you won't be heard.
Get ready,
on-
Natalie.
You won't be heard on our.
I have to write it down every time.
Sorry, I don't know what a birdie
That's
is.
okay, it's great. We audio and video record our meetings, so there will be this no question, and then we'll say what a birdie is.
Great, thank you.
Can I try this time?
It's a formalized process that we go through that's geared toward process improvement. So if we want to take a hard look at something that we think we might be able to do better, it's just a process that we go through to come up with the result. Does that help to understand that, or do you want more detail? Or
The acronym, someone's got to tell them what the acronym stands for.
It's an acronym, may I try? B is bring the issue forward. I is investigate. R is research. D is determine some different solutions. I is implement. And then the most important one is the E, evaluate. So that's Birdie. That's what we do when we have an issue. It's a very structured process, and we have had great success looking at complicated issues that way. We have other systems to do, a little problem. But for big issues, we use the Birdie. Thank you for asking. Jack Farrell.
Comments from the public. Number one, congratulations, Madam Mayor, for remembering what that acronym stands for. That's very impressive, I want to tell you.
Waiting, I've been learning for years.
Number two, I would like to second Mr. Baldry's comments relative to we should keep aware that we have to proportionally increase public safety as we plan out in the future. I think that's an important item. I would also second Ms. Davis's comment relative to the complexity of the budget document. It wasn't too many years ago that, in fact, actually one of the council members refused to approve the budget document for the only reason that it was so complex. It was incomprehensible. So that's a worthy objective to try to get there. Relative to an item that's on the work session, and I know you don't allow public input, so I'll give your input at this time. Relative to the ETJ discussion, I've had a number of discussions with a number of people in Pine Wild in particular, as you might expect. Yes.
Stop and explain what ETJ is.
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that.
Extraterritorial.
Extraterritorial jurisdiction, right.
Yeah, it's a jurisdiction outside of our
That's an
jurisdiction.
extension of the zoning capability of the Village of Pinehurst outside its
Basically.
actual municipal limits,
That's it.
authorized by the North Carolina State Legislature.
Right.
But in any case, we are obviously thrilled, although it's been 10 years in the coming, that in fact the Village Council is ready to address the ETJ issue, particularly along 211, which is of great concern to Pine Wild, and we're very happy to see that. In the map in particular, we're also actually pleased that you're considering the gateway to Pinehurst along 15501 coming from the north to protect that, which will be an important gateway in the future if it isn't now, and also protect the residents of number 6 in particular. The other thing of interest, and I think it's extremely important, is that the map incorporates the throughways of Murdochsville Road and Juniper Creek. It's a number of people's opinion, and I concur, is that Juniper Creek will become an important east-west throughway for Moore County and Pinehurst, not dissimilar to what Morganton Road is on the southern part of Pinehurst. So I think it's important that the property be protected along there. We also think that, although I think you're going to get some knee-jerk reaction from a number of property owners that they really rather not have Pinehurst intrude upon their property rights and so forth. I think in perspective, I think all those property owners may realize at one point in time that their property will be enhanced, their property will become more valuable should the development along there and adjacent to their properties be more predictable, I'll use the word. And I think that's going to be valuable for them and for us completely. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just would like to mention relative to the 10 years that it's been, kind of on the back boiler. In order to extend your ETJ, you have to have a county commission that is willing. And in the past, we did not have a county commission who was willing. Now,
Well,
we think...
we don't really,
sorry?
we don't really need to discuss that in detail at this point in time. It's just that we're very happy that we're willing to pick up the ball now and go
Fine.
forward.
We're going to pick up the ball.
I think that's greatly appreciated.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Any other comments from attendees? Okay. Oh, yes, sir. Would you speak in the microphone and state your name,
Sorry.
please?
I'm used to speaking straight out. I have a pretty good voice, but I will use this.
Your name, please?
My name is Ben Jones, and I want to talk to you about the irrigation system. It's a little concerning that we haven't heard too much from the village council here of late on this. I have talked to Scott in Public Works, and he gave me a good piece of information, which should be put out to all of us, that the village will permit the valve to be installed up closer to the house where it can be hidden. I don't know how many of you have been around to look at 2 or 3 that have been installed, and you see the fake rock, which is not very nice in the neighborhood. And I can imagine what the village will look like when everybody has to have this thing above ground, which is now the second one. In the irrigation set of the county's file, it says a PBZ is the valve to be used. And it is the only one that I have found in checking that has to be above ground. That apparently is because of BSI, who is in charge of the county's installation and supervision of this. But the thing that really struck me when I call to have an inspector. And incidentally, my home being better than 20 years old, it was not required by the code when an irrigation system was put in, so I didn't have one. So I will have to have one. But the question is, why does it have to be above ground? Because the county says so with the PBZ. There are many other valves which can be buried in a box and satisfy the need. The other thing that really hacked me was when I called for the inspector, and he came by, was very nice, quoted me a price, and then said, I have to tell you now, though, my price has gone up $12.50 because this is what I have to give to BSI. I hope the village and Mr. Coleman, who has exercised his voice a couple of times, will consider what we can do to counteract what I think the county is laying on all of the areas that have golf courses and irrigation systems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, the only comment I wanted to make is when we say the word birdie, maybe we ought to say our problem-solving methodology called birdie, because that's all it is, just because we always go through this. And I also just want to comment on what Jack said about improvement in the budget process. I think I've seen his name on, I'm listening to him on improving the budget process. I showed in the past that he had some comments and they've been implemented. So I think we're open to improving this process, and we always want to improve.
Yeah,
and I just thought it was important. We've moved a long way, and we'll continue to improve. That's it.
About the irrigation, about the PV, whatever valves, what is our requirement? How close to the house can they be?
They can be anywhere so long as it's installed before the water gets to the first distribution point in the irrigation system.
That's
Is that a fair way to summarize that, Will? Yeah.
And also the $12.50 paid to that company is that company keeps track of annual inspections, so the county doesn't have to do that. So that's, I know, it's, I guess it's progress, but it's supposed to be protecting our water system. Okay, any more comments from attendees? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion by Mr. Baldry, second by Mr. Cashin. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned from our regular meeting, and we will now call to order